Hello, I'm Justin. This is Talk Junkie. Our email is talkjunkie@gmail.com. Send in your emails, send in anything you got, and may make it on a mailbag episode. I am compiling a mailing list. So try to get that into me. Even if you don't have a comment, just say, hey, this is so-and-so. This is my email address. This is a good contact. That way I can put you on the email address list. I guess today's more about questions I had about me. And that's what a lot of this is. I mean, it's really the purpose in a lot of this is to ask questions about myself and to ask questions about things that are on my mind, and to do that whole thought process, that thought therapy sometimes, and sometimes it's just an exercise to see where you get. I can remember being younger and watching people do things that I thought, I may have even thought they were cool or liked the ideal, but I thought, I feel bad for that person doing this thing because it would embarrass me to do that thing. Even if the person in the situation looked comfortable in doing what they were doing and looked happy doing that, and even if that person was getting positive feedback back to them, if I thought it was cringeworthy or I thought it was uncomfortable and I couldn't imagine me doing it because I would be self-conscious about it, I felt bad for that person. I think some people would tell you I'm over-sympathetic sometimes. Like I'm too sympathetic. I'm too soft for some people. I don't have a problem with that. I don't see it that way, but I could see where people could say that. I have one friend that says we're yin and yang. He can be a little meaner and say a little crueler things because I'll always look for the best and look for the brighter spot. Having said that, I believe in a lot of ways he's a lot better guy than me. But that's a change that's something I've seen about myself. And I said, why do you feel this way? Why do you think this way? Why do you let these things that really aren't related to you in any way make you feel that way? And I try to do that anytime I encounter something about myself that either doesn't sit well with me, or regardless, even if it's something I really like about myself, I think it's important to examine those parts about yourself. And I thought about it, and I thought, well, I'm happy for this person. I'm happy that they're doing something, regardless what it is, because I can think of several situations where that would happen. Let's say this is something when I was much younger. I was watching a film, and somebody in the film was reading their poetry. And when I think of poetry readings, I think of these slam poetry things, or I think of these pretentious poetry readings in movies, or I think of all these different situations where I'm not thinking about the artist and the work and the environment, and I feel uncomfortable. Even though at that time I would have gave anything to being able to have a place to share my poetry and read it and speak and talk, I felt very uncomfortable seeing this person do this. So even though it was exaggerated because it was film, and even though it was a fictitious person, and even though they were doing something that I longed to do in a situation that I would like to be in, I would have been uncomfortable in that situation. So I cringed at them being in that situation, and I, in turn, kind of made sure that for a long time I shied away from being in that situation. Getting in front of people and playing music. It was like that at first, and then it got to where it wasn't like that at all, and then it got towards the end, after years off and coming back, to where it was like that again. I was self-conscious in front of people. And I can remember experiencing something in my personal life where I saw someone performing a particular act, and the people were receptive to it. Everyone was into it. I was into it. I was happy. I was smiling. And I noticed someone not even really saying anything, but looking at it very condescendingly, and then laughing to someone next to him. And then I started to hear bits and pieces of the conversation, and I realized they were mocking this person. And then that joy went from mocking, or that feeling went from joy to two things: pity for the person performing the act and anger at the other people. And I leaned over and said, "Look, it's a free country. If you don't like it, just leave. But there's no reason to make fun of it just because you're not able to understand it." And I should have maybe had that anger, or maybe I should have reacted that way. I don't know. I don't apologize for saying what I think in situations like that. I think that's good. Sometimes I speak too quickly, and sometimes I speak without enough consideration, and that's something I'm working on every day. But to still be willing to vocalize that, I didn't have a problem with. But I should have never felt the pity for the person performing the act. They were still performing the same act and doing the same thing and getting the same response and the same feeling of what I was happy about. And when I saw others enjoying it, my hesitation and my reservations about it went away. And in that moment, maybe I could have done that. Now, years went by, and I speak in front of people, and I speak in front of classes, and I do the podcast, and I do videos, and I don't have any issue with doing my thing in front of people. There's things that I'm uncomfortable doing in front of people, but even some things I'd be uncomfortable reading in front of people, but it would depend on the environment. But that's something I separated out about myself and thought about, and I tried to fix, and I tried to change, and I feel like I tackled it the best that I could. And that's not what this podcast is really about. That's just that thought exercise and that process of finding this thing about myself that was unsatisfactory for me and trying to work on it led me to a thought process I started having years and years and years ago, right around the time that this happened, better than 20 years ago, is what makes us happy, and what kind of influence do we have on that happiness? Because these people that in these situations where I felt pity, I mean, it's a word I despise, but it's the best. It's like I felt an undeserved and unrequited and unnecessary pity for these people when I should have just been happy for them. And I'll ask yourself how happy you are, because it's a good practice, and I try to do it, especially, now with things the way they are in the current situation. My schedule has changed drastically, and now I do morning walks instead of going straight to work first thing in the morning. And on those morning walks, I do a lot of different things. I work out books in my head. I listen to podcasts. I listen to music. It depends on the day. But every few days, I'll do this thing to where I'll take and look at, okay, am I happy? And am I fortunate? And what's making me happy? What's kind of hindering that? Just looking at those different things. And I found that if I add in this one question, it kind of changes things. When was the last time I was really, well, two questions, I guess. When was the last time that I was really happy? Not for a selfish reason. Like, you ever look at your significant other, or look at a friend, or look at your kid and be like, wow, this person's part of my life. Like I feel fortunate about that. It'll make you smile, or get up and go, I'm able to go on a walk today. I'm able to go hike today. I'm able to go run today. And if I'm not able to do any of those things, I'm able to get out of bed today. And it actually brings you some sense of joy. But people who don't have any joy in their life or any happiness in their life, it's but this and but that and but this. But those are just excuses. It's honestly extremely easy to find a reason to be happy on just an everyday basis. Now, there's people with depression and things. That's a different situation. That's a situation I'm not qualified to comment on. It's not my level of expertise. But the possibility to find something to be happy about is still there for those people completely. It's just is the ability to be happy there, and that's a different situation. I dealt with depression a lot when I was younger, and I would have to say I'm very fortunate right now because I don't. And I found a lot of happiness before, during, and after that issue, and when the depression went, the anxiety went, and vice versa, and that's a different time. But the second question I started asking myself at first seemed to be the harder, but it seemed to be the more rewarding when I can answer it. When was the last time you were really happy for somebody else? Like not when was the last time you were happy that your professional sports team player won a championship, or in my wife's case, college basketball team wins a game and it's the seniors last year. Not when you were happy for a person in that way. When was the last time you seen somebody that or somebody or a complete stranger, but somebody that on some level is real like you? When was the last time you seen someone like that succeed at something, or receive something, or just be happy, that you were happy for someone else? I look at, there was a particular time that I saw a particular person get a promotion in jiu-jitsu, just a stripe, just a piece of tape on a belt. But I knew the work that they had put into getting there. And it meant a lot for me to see that be recognized. And that's happened numerous times. I remember getting my first stripe ever, and I remember getting my first stripe under the professor I'm under now, and those were rewarding for me, and I was happy. I don't know if I was on the outside, but inside I was smiling ear to ear because I felt an acknowledgement for my work and an appreciation for my effort. But I can count numerous times that I've seen people get promotions, especially belt-wise, people who I learn from. There's I guess you could call it a hierarchy, but there's an earned level of knowledge in jiu-jitsu, and it flows upwards, but the knowledge flows back down much more than it flows up, obviously, and it's very unique in the way that knowledge is free and distributed and available to everyone. It's one of the beautiful things about jiu-jitsu. It's not overly structured and restrictive in how you gain the knowledge. So to see these people get these promotions meant a lot to me. And so I found great happiness in their happiness. I'll give you an example that I mentioned to my wife one time. My wife and I were in a Goodwill. I hunt for a lot of older stuff, especially VHS. And we were in a Goodwill. And I'm walking through, and I looked at the VHS, and I'm going to the back, and I'm making that turn to come back out, and I stop. And in the floor, there's this little kid. And she's got a bunch of toys just pulled out on the floor, and she's sitting in the middle of the floor playing with these toys. And an older lady, much older lady, this is a very young kid, so I'm assuming a grandmother or a caretaker, comes over and says, "We've got to go," you know. And she gets up and she goes, "All of these toys are fun. I like these toys, but I only need one," you know. And the grandmother says, "Well, which one do you want? You know, pick you a couple out." And she looks around and she picks up this Barbie doll with no clothes and no hair. And this is a real thing that happened from I'm assuming 4 or 5-year-old kid. And she said, "This one needs love. I want this one." And the grandmother said, you know, okay, and they left. But I was happy. I was happy for that kid. I was happy because that kid was content and happy sitting there in that moment playing. I was happy because the kid said a very beautiful thing and had a beautiful thought process and all that. That brought joy to me as well. But what really brought me joy was just that kid sitting there playing with those toys and being happy in that moment. I don't know what kind of life that kid has outside of that moment. It could be horrible. It could be wonderful. I don't know. But I was happy for that kid in that moment. I don't feel like I can truly be happy myself, or that I can truly be satisfied in life, or even that I can truly be a good person if I can't find some satisfaction and some happiness in the success of others. Two things I've said in my mind. I never want to be that person that looks at someone else's real earned success and go, "You know what, that's not fair, that should have been me." Because you are doing more damage to yourself in that than anything. And I don't want to be around the person that says, "I don't want somebody else to succeed. If I can't do it, they don't deserve to do it." Those people don't really have a lot of room in my life. I may say hi, I may acknowledge you, but I'll never truly value your opinion or really have anything of any substance in a relationship with you because, you know, I don't need that weight weighing me down, and that weight will transfer eventually. Enough of those people around, it doesn't seem to matter how strong your convictions, a little bit of it seems to just wear off. And even if it doesn't, is it worth the risk? The same goes for people who it's always someone else's fault. It's never their fault. It's never because of them. Well, I got arrested because the cops were picking on me, or, you know, I got on drugs because my parents wasn't around, or, even if there's some truth to that, the only people I know that ever made it out the other side were people that said, "I had some part in that." And I know a lot of people that made it out the other side. I know a lot of people that worked real hard to make it out the other side. And there had to be some personal responsibility there. Had to be. There's responsibility on other people's parts. But it's owning up and taking your portion first. You know, I could sit and say, well, you know, years back we had financial trouble and we had a bankruptcy and we lost everything, and it's because of greedy banks, and it's because of this, and it's because I was chasing something I could not obtain, something I didn't really want. It was my doing. There were no guns held to my head, not at all. Not societally, not physically, not mentally. It was purely me. And owning that makes it easier to appreciate being out of it. And it puts some value to it. So people who, it's never their fault. I mean, it's always somebody else's fault. I did this because of this. I did that because of that. I did this because so-and-so did it. And it's because they did this that I did that. People who have no limit on excuses, and people who find no joy in other people's success are people that I can't understand on a physical level. I just don't. I don't get it. I don't understand them on a mental level. I don't understand them. I don't understand what the goal is. You know, you have a finite amount of time here. You have a certain amount of energy to put forth in life, and I think any normal person spends at least the first 25 years directing that energy in the wrong way. Maybe not that. I would say the first 10 years, you probably direct it exactly the right way. And then people interfere, and institutions interfere, and education interferes, and those things interfere, and peer pressure interferes, and advertising interferes, and all these things interfere, and you start projecting it the wrong way. And for me, I was probably 35 before I halfway got it back right. I started trying probably at 25. But, and I've had, I had someone tell me one time, and they were upset with me, and we really don't communicate any longer, but they told me that it was easy for me to be a better person because I'm a weaker person. That is to say, that they thought it was easier for me to be nice, and it was easier for me to try to be fair and equal and be good to people because I was weaker. I didn't have the ability to be strong. I didn't have the ability to be mean. I didn't have the ability to be ferocious with people. So therein, it was a default. It's not that I was a good person. It's that I was too weak to be what they were. And I actually thought about that, considered that, and somewhat maybe even believed that for some time. But I know some people that physically, if we're talking about, the ability to defend oneself and the ability to be physical and the ability of combat, I know some bad dudes that are good people. And they're measurably good people. And it shows. It really shows. And I think the impact a person has on other people, that impact is somewhat dependent upon the impact of a good deed is in how it's felt by a person is somewhat reflective of the good in that person. You can do a good deed, you can do a good thing for someone and still be the bad guy to them because of their mental place. Just like you can do the bad thing and be the good guy. The person who stays in an abusive relationship. It's dependent on your interpretation of good and bad is dependent upon where you're at in regards to good and bad. And who's to say what good and bad is? But there's a basic knowledge. There's an accepted knowledge. There's common sense understanding of what that is. And there's an understanding in good action. Plato said, good actions give strength to ourselves and inspire good actions in others. I think that's mostly true. I think it is. But again, someone being perceptive to a good action is probably someone doing a good action or who has the mental state to want to do a good action. But when was the last time? When was the last time you were happy for someone else? That's a weird question to ask yourself. And I mean, it can be so small as to, I was happy for my son when he was able to do blank, or I was happy for my neighbor when blank happened. I was happy for Weird Paul in that documentary Will Work for Views when he was able to go to Los Angeles and perform, and his goal and his dream started to take off. Even though you don't dive into the film and you don't see it, there's the possibility that his girlfriend may be a negative person. But positive things are starting to happen for him. And I'm happy for him. I'm not jealous of him. I'm not envious of him. I'm not disregarding his... I'm not unappreciative of his work and what he had to do to get there and the sacrifices he had to make and the type of situations that creates that person. I'm just happy for him. If I have a friend who gets a job that they like, here's a great example. I started a personal business of my own once. It didn't fail, but it would have if I'd have stayed in. I wasn't able to do both things at one time. And then I've made the attempt to start another business twice, a business I really like and a business that I think would could be somewhat prosperous in this area. But I didn't. I had a friend who started a business, a small business, a business that I wasn't even sure would make it, a business that, they were concerned about because of the type of business and the area we were in. And it was a business that I was optimistic about, but I had concerns, and I imagine they did as well. That business has done really good, and that business has become a success. To what degree financially, I have no idea. But I feel that it's definitely a financial success, and it's become a viable business, and I feel like it has some longevity, hopefully. Despite the fact that one of my very close friends run it, despite all those things, I would have still been happy. But even amplified by the fact that one of my very close friends run it, I'm very, very happy that success is there. I'm truly happy for that person. I'm not envious. I'm not jealous. I'm just happy. I know that they've worked hard at that endeavor. I know they've worked hard at life. I know they've put in hard hours and disappointing hours in life in general. And I know that they truly deserve to be reaping the benefits of what they sowed. And I truly believe that. I'm truly happy for that person. And there was a time when I wasn't like that. There was a time when I would be jealous, or I would be, when I was younger, when I was immature, when I was unintelligent, when I was uneducated on how life is, how life works. And I've got a couple friends rephrase that. I had a couple acquaintances that I was very close with for years and years. And they all had, they're different people, and we weren't a group together. It was individual friendships over time, but there's been people that I didn't do anything bad to, or I just quit interacting with as much. And it's because never happy for somebody else, never appreciative of anything in their life. And that has a bad effect on me. It may not on them. Does it on you? I don't know. Let me know. It does on me. Or they kept doing things that I had quit doing. Those are the hardest ones because some of those people I really cared about. But they quit doing some of the things. They kept doing some of the things that I had to quit doing. Some people had a weird feeling about me being married with a kid by 20, so they separated themselves from me. But Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. To me, that works in reverse. If I want my life to be positive, I got to somewhat put positive. Man, that's some hippie sounding crap right there. I know it is. I know it is. I can't help it. But that's the purpose of this podcast, and that's the purpose of some of these walks, and that's the purpose of some of these things, is the thought process, is the looking at things from various points of view, and I don't know. Just ask yourself those two questions. Ask yourself, when was the last time I was really happy? Not for a selfish reason, but just really happy. And then ask yourself, when was the last time I was really happy for someone else? I do that, and I think it's beneficial for me. And tell me, do you do it for a week? Do it for a month? A month maybe to make a difference. Once, twice a week for a month. And tell me, does it make a difference for you? Think about what's really frustrating you the most right now in your life. Then break that down and go, okay, but what's the positive here? Okay? I firmly believe there's a way to find a positive in almost anything. I mean, there's times I just gave up hope. I was like, man, screw it. There's no way this gets better. It can't get worse, but there's no way it gets better, but it does. And I don't know. Do that for a month and try to find a value in everything for a month. And try to be happy for someone at every opportunity you can, and try to be happy yourself, and find a reason and see if that makes a difference in your mood. Excuse me, a difference in the way you feel. You can't want everything to be bad for other people all the time. Schadenfreude? Schadenfreude, I think it is. Pleasure derived from another's misfortune, basically. There's a poem by that title in the new book that's coming out. Pick apart every single aspect of their existence. They are not good enough. Wrong clothes, wrong shoes, wrong phone. You feel so much better when they feel bad. Judge every single post, like, or share. They don't know how to play the game. Unpopular beliefs, unpopular passions, unpopular desires. It's so much better when they look so pathetic. Watch all of their misfortunes with an unmatched joy. They suffer as a result of your hidden pain. No love, no value, no hope. It's so much better when others bleed. Nothing fills the empty person like the misfortune of the good. Nothing brings the weak more joy than the pain of the meek. That is why they all love to watch the most beautiful things die. It's weird to me. It's weird. Is it part of our programming from the hunter-gatherer situation where, okay, if Billy Bob's a better hunter-gatherer and protector than me, then he gets more mates to breed with, and if I want to pass my genes on, I need to be the better at these things. And does it come from an evolutionary standpoint, from that point of view of everyone wants to be number one so that they are able to procreate and leave the most seed behind. And so when they aren't, judgment and just dissatisfaction and jealousy and greed and hatred all come into play. Is it that basic? Does it go back that far evolutionarily? What is the cause of that? And why is it that the people I see who this is really going to boggle some minds out there, but I'm not a genius. And I didn't come up with this principle or think of this on my own. I've read about various things, especially, some of these same tenets are somewhat there in the works of Marcus Aurelius, like in the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. Some of these things are there in some of the greatest minds, things they've said, things like Dr. Martin Luther King said, these belief structures have been around for a long time, and it seems like the people who attempt them the hardest seem to be the most successful and the most happy and the most well-adjusted, because you have to, again, look at your definition of success and happiness. To me, if you can have a good family life most of the time, if you can provide for yourself most of if most of life is good instead of bad, that is a success. A success doesn't have to be being a millionaire and things of that nature. That is a success. So these people who have been able to apply these things are mostly successful. Now, on the other hand, there's some greedy people out there, horribly selfish people, who seem to, on paper, succeed more, especially financially, than others. But you've got to put a value. You've got to put a value on that financial success. You've got to put a value on their life. Is their life really, relationship-wise and happiness-wise and all those things, is that really where you want to be? So financially doesn't really get to be a factor. It's the other things. But I don't know. And I was walking today. I come out extra early so I could get everything in before the rain started, and I realized, I thought about it, and I remember the last time I was really happy, and I remember the last time I was happy for someone else. And both of those things, thinking about them and breaking them down, understanding why I was happy, et cetera, et cetera. Those things brought me a lot of calm and peace and made me happy. And that's all the hippie stuff for today. I can't do anymore. Again, the email is, what is the email? I don't remember. What's the name of the show? talkjunkie@gmail.com. Send them in. There's no number on these to when I do these mailbags. We'll do another mailbag when we get plenty of mail and I've got nothing else to do a show about. We're getting ready to do our 100 show retrospective, and we're getting very close to doing our iTunes 1,000 downloads. So we're getting close on both of those, and I'm pretty excited about both of those. iTunes is probably the way to go for getting this show, but share this thing. Don't hold you personally responsible. If you listen to this show, share this show. I know people are listening. I see the downloads. I see the emails. I know a lot of you are people I don't know. That interests me. Send me an email. Tell me how you found out about the show, and all that. But don't suck. Don't die. And be good to people.